Gentlemen, start your engine! Beep, 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 yeah!
Joseph Newgarden is a two-time Indy 500 winner!
Three abreast, photo finish!
Lewis Hamilton wins the British Grand Prix! Joey Logano steps into history! He's a three-time Cup Series champion!
Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Motorsports Today, live on our flagship radio home, 88.7 WRSU FM New Brunswick, online at WRSU.org. Every episode available on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, iHeart, Amazon. Find us on the socials at Motorsports Today. Find us on the web at motorsportstoday.net. Eddie Kalegi, Adam Tropper are going to be joining us in just a few minutes' time. NASCAR season is complete, but we're still thinking back to last weekend. What a great time Tropper and I had covering the race in person at Phoenix Raceway, and the fallout continues. A lot of silly season news this morning in both NASCAR and INDYCAR, plus Formula One is in action this weekend. This tight championship battle that Lando Norris finally has a grip on, but Oscar Piastri's just 1 point back and Max Verstappen still lurking. Practice this morning for the Brazilian Grand Prix. We'll give our preview and picks at the end of the show. Going to hear from a bunch of Cup drivers in just a couple of minutes that Tropper and I talked with in the media bullpen on Saturday about their 2025 seasons. Also an interview with Xfinity Series driver Nick Sanchez about his maiden campaign with Big Machine Racing. But before we get to that, let's take you through what you might have missed since we were last on the air on Monday with our pit stop. Starting with on-track action this morning, the first and only practice session for Sunday's Brazilian Grand Prix in Sao Paulo. Good run for the hometown kid, Gabriel Bortoleto, who was fifth. A double top five for Kick Sauber. His teammate Hulkenberg was third, but a double 1-2 for McLaren. Lando Norris setting the fastest time by 0.02 of a second, the only driver to break 1:10. Max Verstappen struggled 17th quick despite running 30 laps. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda was last after having an off-track excursion, ran the fewest laps at 19. It's a sprint weekend. A lot's going to be happening at the Brazilian Grand Prix. In NASCAR silly season news, a trio of news drops from this morning. Parker Retzlaff will go full-time racing for Viking Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, now the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in 2026, driving the number 99, replacing Matt DiBenedetto. Corey Day, who's made part-time starts for Hendrick Motorsports in their number 17 Chevrolet the last 2 years in Xfinity, will go full-time racing in the secondary series in 2026 for Hendrick Motorsports, who will have a full-time entrant in the series for the first time in 2 decades. And then the news comes, number swap at Trackhouse Racing. Shane Van Gisbergen will move over from the 88 to the number that both he and his father grew up racing in Australia and New Zealand, the number 97, the same number that SVG ran in his lone Xfinity full-time season back in 2024. Connor Zilic will drive the number 88, taking the number from the secondary series to his rookie Cup campaign next February. And then in IndyCar, Kyle Collette from the Indy Next Series getting the promotion to replace David Malukas at AJ Foyt Racing in 2026. Malukas now at Penske replacing Will Power, and Collette will team up with Santino Ferrucci for an AJ Foyt Racing team that showed a lot of promise last year. Both of their drivers with podium finishes during the 2025 season. That's your pit stop, but let's first get into it. Several drivers were made available to the media last Saturday that were not competing for a championship, and Adam Tropper and I made the rounds and chatted with several about their 2025 seasons, the outlook for 2026, their off-season plans. And let's start with the driver who came oh so close to competing for a championship once again, but fell short by a mere matter of points, Christopher Bell.
It's so marginal and circumstantial whether or not you make it to the Final Four, and you've been right there all 4 years of the next-gen car. Is there anything you feel like you need to do to take that next step to try to get a championship next year?
It's just going to depend on what the changes are. So I think we've heard that it's going to be something different than what we've had this year, so there's just no telling. But yeah, I mean, using this format, it rewards wins, and a couple times I've won, and a couple times I didn't win, and the times that I didn't win, I found myself out.
Is there a change you're hoping for with that, or kind of just waiting and seeing?
I mean, I just want the format to reward a true champion year in and year out, and over the past whatever it's been 10 years of the format, I think there's been times where it hasn't rewarded the best champion or the most true champion. And yeah, with that being said, I think this year the format worked really well.
With you having 3 wins back-to-back right at the beginning of the season, do you think that potentially hindered progress going into the rest of the regular season?
No, not at all. I just, I think that goes back to me saying that, the consistency is a problem, and we have those moments of doing really well, and then we won 3 races, and even with winning those 3 races, we still didn't really dominate the race. I think we did here at Phoenix, but Coda and Atlanta, obviously we didn't. We need to be up front more, and putting an emphasis on track position is super important, and I don't think we've done a good job of that.
That was Christopher Bell. Here's another driver that was eliminated in the round of 8, Chase Elliott.
Chase, how would you evaluate 2025 and the season looking back?
I think it's been okay. We've had some, a couple wins, which is good. Another opportunity this weekend. Thought we were really respectable yesterday, and had it's been a couple of years where the winner of the race hadn't been the winner of the championship now. So certainly all within reach, and look forward to trying to end on a high note.
What's the biggest step for you that you feel like you might need to take to 2026 to get to that next level?
I think there's a few things. The qualifying thing I feel like has been a struggle for us. I thought that's gotten a lot better over the past couple months. So hopefully that trend continues today. That's a big one. Can really kind of shape what your day looks like. When you get to Sunday. So I'd like to keep that one going.
And last thing, off-season hotels. What's this time off looking like for you?
Yeah, just enjoy the holidays and enjoy some time at home. Looking forward to that.
Chase Elliott won twice in 2025. How about Kyle Busch, who hasn't won each of the last 2 years?
Hey, Kyle. So how would you evaluate just 2025 as a whole? Obviously, as of right now, unfortunately, another winless season, but how do you see going back into victory lane come next year, building that momentum?
Well, we just got to keep working on building everything, and, getting Jim Pullman announced as our crew chief for next year. Hopefully that obviously will help things and get us continuing to trend in the right direction. We've actually seen a little bit of that trend in the right direction here the last couple of weeks, so that's been positive. But, everybody wants to win. They want to win tomorrow. Hell, they want to win this weekend, right? Tomorrow. But, there's still a building process that's got to take place to get us to that avenue, and being most consistent each and every week and finishing consistently in the top 5 is the easiest way to prove that you're capable of your next win. So we've got to get to that point first.
Staying in the Chevy camp, here's Hendrick Motorsports' Alex Bowman.
Looking ahead to 2026, what's the biggest maybe improvement point you feel like you're looking towards for next year?
There's a massive list. I don't think there's anything that we have done at a high enough level to say we can't do it better, right? Like we need to do pretty much everything better. So, working really hard to make that happen and do the best job we can. And I think we have good things going, and hopefully it all pays off.
Another Chevrolet that was a first-round postseason exit. I talked to Austin Dillon.
Reflecting on 2025, got another win at Richmond. How would you evaluate the season, and what's the biggest step for next year?
Well, obviously getting to multiple wins at our organization would be nice. Trying to go to victory lane multiple times. Get the 18 better, get our team just a little better, and I'm looking forward to the 2026 Chevy. And just keep improving. I think we've had some highlights, we had some lowlights, but we've been able to battle and fight out all those things. Our team never quits, and we can lean on that, the no-quit attitude and resiliency that we have.
And what's the off-season and the holidays looking like for you?
I'll be in a deer stand as much as possible. Got a family trip coming up right after this, but then I'm going to be chasing deer.
Some nasty crashes to close out the year, but positives to take away for Kalegi Racing's AJ Allmendinger.
So first off, how would you evaluate 2025?
I think there's always positives to it for sure. It's something that we've made a lot of gains. We've had, for us, a good amount of speed at a lot of different racetracks at times that we have been very good at. You always want better results. Just like a lot of teams, you can say there's been bad luck. There's definitely things we got to work on going into next year. I think probably our biggest disappointment is just the road course results that we had. So that's stuff that I got to work on for sure. But you always want more. We could have been better and for stuff here or there, but you just got to take the positives out of it.
And rounding out our conversations with the Chevy camp, the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series Rookie of the Year, Shane Van Gisbergen.
First full Cup season, did it go fast for you?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, but it was definitely a grind at the start and not frustrating, but it was a process. The last half of the season, I'm not ready to stop racing. I feel like we're getting better and better. So, if we kept racing, I'd be happy.
How would you reflect on the season at this point now?
Pretty good. Obviously, it's amazing to get the wins, and I think it's definitely sort of 2 seasons for us. The road course is obviously great, and then the ovals second half of the year has been awesome. We've really improved and learning a lot. I feel like every week we learn something, get better and better, so pretty happy with how the season ended up.
Shifting to Toyota, the 2025 Brickyard 400 winner who almost made it to the round of 8, Bubba Wallace.
It's looking like you're going to be able to finish top 10 in the point standings. I believe that's the first time for you. So how does that feel?
Ross is within striking distance. So.
Well, if you can get it.
It's good. We finished 10th 2 years ago. So just gotta execute tomorrow. Obviously, Ross won here that year that I finished 10th. We were sitting 9th, and he got us. So just got to put it all together. But I'd call it a successful season for sure.
Next, Adam spoke with Hunter Nemechek after his sophomore season with Legacy Motor Club.
Okay, so looking at the end of the season, just how would you evaluate 2025?
I guess our gains don't show a lot on paper, right? But from finishing 32nd or 34th in points last year to having the opportunity to still possibly finish 23rd, I think we sit 24th right now. It's a big step for our organization. Feel like we've made a lot of progress in our race cars, speed-wise, drivability-wise. Feel like we've been able to execute a lot better this year. We've had some really good runs and some not so good runs, and that's going to come with it. But I definitely think that we've been able to make strides in the ways that we've needed to this year, and hopefully that those can roll into 2026 and be even better for us.
Moving on to Ford, a driver who had a promising season but fell short of the playoffs once again, RFK Racing's Chris Buescher.
So, Chris, looking as a whole for 2025, how would you just evaluate your season looking back?
Good without being great. We had a lot of really good weekends, a lot of good speed at a lot of different styles of racetracks. It takes one extra step to truly be in contention to fight to win more of them. We had a good handful that we had a good shot at and just didn't seal the deal at the end of the day. So definitely missed opportunities. A little bit of rough luck along the way, which anybody in here will say the same thing. So it's just a good year without being stellar.
Do you think RFK going to 3 full-time entries had any impact on that?
No, not from a negative side, certainly not. I think we've had 3 cars that have been able to compete for wins at different times in the year, and I think that we've been able to step up our short track program because of Ryan Preece and the 60 team and having that third program. So I certainly there's times where adding in a whole team can be a drag down on an organization, but that was certainly not my impression of this year.
Next, Chris Buescher's RFK teammate and team co-owner Brad Keselowski, who spoke about himself and the third member of the team, Ryan Preece.
You added Ryan Preece in that third car this year, so I just wanted your thoughts on, one, how you think RFK as a whole was able to manage that third full-time entry, but two, also Ryan Preece's season.
Yeah, I thought Ryan's done a great job, or I think Ryan's done a great job. I'm really happy and proud of him. I think that team's come together very well. He's got a lot of potential and great partners. We've been able to sell out the inventory on it for sponsors. It's really been just a dream come true, so we're really proud of it.
And even though you guys can pull out a win this season, what positives can you take away going into 2026?
A lot of consistency. I love our consistency. We just need to consistently get a couple of better finishing positions and turn it into wins.
Appreciate it.
For the 2025 outlook on Front Row Motorsports, here's the veteran of their stable, Todd Gilliland.
2 new teammates this year with Zane and Noah. How are you guys able to kind of build chemistry as the season went on?
Yeah, we had good chemistry to start with, right? We're all the same age, and we all know each other really well off the racetrack. I feel like I know Zane better off the racetrack, but I've known and raced Noah on the racetrack a lot longer. So I think we fit right in together really well. Obviously, probably not the seasons any of us hoped for. But I've really enjoyed working with those guys, and I definitely think there's obviously hopefully a lot of runway for all of us in this sport, and it's been a lot of fun.
You mentioned how the offseason goes by in like the blink of an eye. Did the season go fast for you? Because it feels like just all of a sudden you hit Phoenix and like, dang, it's over.
It's really weird. I feel like some moments like I look back on and it feels like forever ago, and then we link back of like the first race here, and it was super early in the season. I feel like it was just yesterday. So I don't know, right? It's one of those things. I think it's like a saying, right? The days go slow, but like the months go fast, right? So it's been a lot of fun, and definitely never take these for granted. But it definitely, I'd say for the most part, feels like it's flown by.
A look back at year 2 in the Cup Series and year 1 with the Wood brothers for Josh Berry.
You had a rough playoff run, but being in the playoffs, how do you think that could help you going forward? Just not just for any race, any high pressure circumstance, and to be able to perform better going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously making the playoffs was a big goal of ours, and accomplishing that was good. We had the speed really most of the weeks. We just didn't have the finishes to go along with it, and that's what it takes to advance to the rounds. So, hopefully next time will be better.
And finally, we wrap with the final winner of 2025 and the newest social media star in the making in NASCAR, Ryan Blaney.
You've been doing a lot of media appearances for NASCAR social media, kind of becoming a face of the sport in a way. So first off, how do you feel about just doing those? Your acting chops seem to be okay. How's it been with working with NASCAR and kind of building both your brand and NASCAR together?
Oh, it's been great. I've enjoyed it. I've always been somebody who haven't always had a good time doing that stuff if those things come about and understand what it is for. It's for the betterment of the sport. I'm a part of the sport. I want it to do well. And if this is my way of also, helping it do well outside of the racetrack, then I'm probably going to do it. That part is something that I've liked. If it makes sense to me to go do, if I have time to go do it, I always try to put my hand up and do it. So I applaud NASCAR for pushing that stuff. Like they've really pushed that. I remember for years that wasn't really that way. And I think that side has gotten really good. And it's nice that they've usually called me when they need some stuff, and maybe it's because I do say yes, I'll do it for you. Just help it out, man.
Great to hear from so many drivers during the bullpen last week at Phoenix Raceway, and get a little evaluation on the season from so many drivers. Eddie Kalegi, Adam Tropper joining us now, and Tropper, we heard at the very beginning of that Christopher Bell talking about how he wants the format to crown a true champion. And I hate to keep harping on it, but again, we weren't on the show on Monday. We had our quick reactions from the track on Sunday night. But even as I've let this sit and simmer for 5 days, I'm still frustrated with the way things ended. Not the fact that Kyle Larson won the championship, but the fact that it came down to an overtime restart to decide a champion for a 9-month season, and to see Denny Hamlin then have a championship wiped away from him because somebody else got a flat tire. And I know that's some of the circumstances and the variables of racing. And if it was a close points battle, which if you went by full season points, it was between, say, Byron and Larson, Byron blowing that tire with 3 to go would have given Kyle Larson the championship. But you can't take that all into consideration because people race different because of this format. Denny Hamlin probably would have run better at Talladega, for example, because he would have had the urgency to race hard, not because he kind of sagged off a little bit because he wasn't locked in because he was locked in for the championship. But Tropper, at this juncture, now that it's been a few days, Kyle Larson's a deserving champion, but there's reason still, I think, to just be frustrated, especially after we saw the clips from the awards show and the media availability on Tuesday in Scottsdale, that Denny Hamlin just looks so deflated. Seems like we're having issues getting Tropper and his connection. But that's just my 2 cents on it all. But, it's just disappointing at this point, just the way that things have progressed. And there's been a lot of, disappointed discourse about the way the championship settled out. But Kyle Larson earned it. He deserved it. But it's just so disappointing when you really think about how things went. But really interesting to see just the perspective from drivers like Christopher Bell, and it's going to be really interesting to see how things develop over the next few weeks. But let's step aside. When we get back at it, we're going to hear from Nick Sanchez, NASCAR Xfinity Series driver. I was able to chat with him in the Big Machine Racing Hauler. Very promising season from Nick Sanchez. Going to hear from him about his 2025, looking ahead to 2026 for his second full-time season in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Yes, that's going to take a lot of getting used to. Plus, Formula One going to get you set for the Brazilian Grand Prix, and a lot of silly season news that we talked about off the top from both NASCAR and INDYCAR that we are going to have to weigh in on. Here with you, Motorsports Today on a Friday, 88.7 FM, WRSU.org, always available on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this is Tim Moore, and you're listening to Motorsports Today. Back to the show.
Back here, Motorsports Today, 88.7 FM, WRSU.org, always available Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Eddie Kalegi here with you, and now I believe we have Adam Tropper. Do you hear me now?
Yes, I got you, Eddie.
Okay, great. So I was going to ask you, and then I was left hanging. I felt very bad, but it might have been an issue on my end. It might have been an issue on your end. Who knows? We haven't been in the studio in a couple weeks, so it's all good. I was going to ask you, now that it's been 5 days, I gave my take before the break. How is the championship sitting with you? Because my contention is Kyle Larson statistically deserved it. Did he earn it from the race like TCB mentioned on the show on Monday? I don't know. But the fact that even 5 days later, there's frustration over who won the championship when it's the driver who scored the most points, again, points out the flaws in the format. And, it's funny how Christopher Bell had said to us at the track last Saturday that this felt like a year where you're going to get a deserving champion because for once the format worked to the way it was designed and you got the 4 best drivers racing for a championship, and it still doesn't sit right. And when that doesn't sit right with you, there's no better evidence than ever that this format is significantly flawed.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the irony of the format for sure. But we said it even before race weekend started, that this was probably the most stacked Final Four we had in terms of who's deserving and who really separated themselves from the pack. But Larson, and especially kind of sitting through this throughout the week, Larson, 100% deserving winner. And we even said that on Sunday when it happened. But once again, it just didn't sit right. You felt for Denny, and don't get me wrong, I still do. And it still kills me as a fan to not see Denny being able to pull it off after dominating that race. But if you look at kind of the season as a whole, not even the season as a whole, like the kind of the 10-race chase, if you will, kind of the format that they had before the elimination bracket, and what they might even go back to as one of the potential options. Larson just outran Hamlin those last 10 races, especially the last 6 of the last 7 races for Larson, I believe, were top 5. So it's a deserving champion. He's, as you said, scored most points throughout the season. So I really don't have much of a problem with it. It's just gut-wrenching for Denny. But I think as time goes on, myself and a lot of other fans too will start to see this too if we're up off season, that it kind of just is another season in the books, because Hamlin too has had those heartbreaks before. I don't think anything excruciatingly this close, 40 seconds away from a championship. But at the same time, I hate to say it's the cards we were dealt with the format. That's why the format is probably going to be changed. But at the same time, it's no less of a deserving champion in Larson.
Now, the one other question I have, because there's been a lot of fear amongst fans that this chases Denny Hamlin away. I almost feel like the lawsuit existing right now is almost good to keep Denny Hamlin still in the Cup Series. But there's reason for people to see parallels between what happened with Carl Edwards 9 years ago and what happened now. Because when you think back to, say, Carl Edwards, and, he had some championship heartbreaks throughout his early tenure. 2008, you can make the argument he had a better season than Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch statistically, and if obviously Jimmy won the championship. 2011, he ends up losing in a tie to Tony Stewart when he was probably the best car all year, but Stewart made it happen in the playoffs. And then this format, he drives the race of his life in 2016, gets wrecked, and that was the last time we ever saw him in a car. And you think about Denny Hamlin. As you said, he's had heartbreaks through the years. Nothing quite like what happened here when he had the dominant car and ran the day, as he said at the award show, that was almost perfect but couldn't get it done. I don't see Denny Hamlin going out like this because I just see there's some character differences, in my opinion, in the way he carries himself and the way Carl Edwards carries himself, and I just can't see Denny Hamlin walking away after this. But I do understand the concern of some people that remember how suddenly things happened after a heartbreaking championship loss for Carl Edwards 9 years ago, and why there's some similar parallels to now, especially when everybody is jumping on that quote from Joe Gibbs saying, "Thank you for all the years" to Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where people are coming from, but I don't think Hamlin's too much of a competitor just to be able to call it quits while really he's still at the top of his game. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen these last 2 years of his contract, and maybe he'll have a little bit of a dip in performance. You never know. But at the same time, Hamlin is not the type to give up while he's on top. Maybe if he would have won a championship, he was saying that potentially. But if he still has another chance, if he has that opportunity in front of him, I think he's going to take it. And like you said, you see the character differences. Hamlin's a lot more outspoken. Like Edwards, that really came as a shock to literally everyone in the industry. Whereas Hamlin, he already does actions detrimental. He's suing the sanctioning body. I mean, come on. You don't get someone that involved just going to leave the sport when you have a competitive car. I think I said this to you on Sunday night after the race, Eddie. I just don't see Hamlin going, because also keep in mind his loyalty to Joe Gibbs Racing, Joe Gibbs, and also the late J.D. Gibbs. That's been obviously a big storyline, and I just don't feel like Hamlin has it in him or would want to back out of the contractual obligations before it's over. One, just because he doesn't want to screw over the organization, but two, also think about the sentimental value that he's basically family to them, and I think he's going to want to ride it out as long as possible, and I don't think he would want to mess that up.
Fair enough. Well, let's shift to the secondary series. That's what I'm going to call it right now, because it's not Xfinity anymore. It'll be the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in a couple of months' time. And I had a chance to stop by the Big Machine Racing hauler last week with Tropper, and we had a chance to catch up with Nick Sanchez, who had a promising first season replacing Parker Kligerman, got a win for the organization at Atlanta, made the playoffs, almost made the round of 8. And here's my conversation with Nick Sanchez, looking back at 2025.
Hey, Kalegi here at Championship Weekend at Phoenix Raceway. Championship Weekend for Cup, but for Xfinity too. And we're joined by the driver for Big Machine Racing, Nick Sanchez. Nick, thanks for taking the time.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So looking at the season overall, not one of the four fighting for the championship, but you did get that win at Atlanta. Big building year, first year for you with this team. How would you kind of evaluate your season?
It's been a good year, like you said. We were able to capture a win. We were close to a couple others, but unfortunately didn't get it done. And I think it was a building and a learning year for me as a race car driver. Big Machine's been great, welcoming me with open arms, and we're just trying to get better for 2026.
Making the move from trucks to Xfinity, I've talked to a few drivers who said it's vastly different between the two cars. What would you say was the biggest adjustment for you moving to Xfinity?
A race car is a race car, in my opinion. And you can drive one, you can drive the other. I think, switching teams, different campuses, and a much larger, different schedule, I think is the biggest thing, right? A lot of road courses, you're going to a lot of these tracks 2 times instead of 1 time. So just getting adjusted to some of the tracks that I've never visited, and obviously the team, I'm new, and just getting to learn everyone, and I think just team building, I think is the biggest difference.
Now, I think it's funny, like, I've talked to a lot of people because it's 9 months, it's just a whirlwind, and then all of a sudden it just comes to an end this weekend. I was only at a few races, but you're on the road every single week. Does it go fast for you? Does it kind of hit at a certain point where you're like, oh my gosh, the season's almost over?
It goes very fast. But then, when we're done Saturday night, to the time we get to Daytona, it's going to feel like 2 or 3 weeks, right? The off-season is even faster. So for us, it never stops, right? We're done Saturday night. We're going to be working on next year. So it's a full year-round schedule, in my opinion.
And looking into next year, what's the biggest, the next step you feel like you guys need to take for 2026?
For me, it's about showing up every single weekend with a shot to win, right? And we've done that. We've had some really good weekends this year, but we've had some really not good weekends. So I think to be the strongest team, your weakest weekends need to be 5th or 6th, right? So that's what we're looking at doing, and we'll see what we do.
Appreciate Paul Williams for making that happen for us to stop by, visit with Nick Sanchez, and talk to him. And Tropper, this was a first season where it was hard for someone like Sanchez to stand out in the Chevy camp when you got Zilich and Allgaier and Quapple and Love and Hill. It's hard to really make your mark, we'll talk about some of these silly season moves that have come up this morning for the O'Reilly Series next year, but with the thinning of the herd, per se, with a few drivers like Zilich moving up, paired with a few teams shutting down their operations, I think there's a real opportunity for someone like a Nick Sanchez, who got that experience this year, now moves into year 2. Big Machine Racing as an organization seems to be making positive strides each year, to set themselves up with an opportunity, if you're Sanchez, to legitimately be a championship contender, especially since he got that first win under his belt.
Exactly, and once that first win happens, usually you see the floodgates open. Sanchez had a really good season. He had the win, he had 7 top 5s, and obviously, like you said, when you're competing with Junior Motorsports this season especially, even if you're in that Chevy camp, you're still going to be like 6th, 7th fiddle, unfortunately. But with Kalegi out of that series entirely, with Zilich moving up, with trying to think that there's a billion other examples. The point is, I definitely see the potential, especially with the experience under his belt now of a full year in that series, to be able to take it to the next level, win a few more races. I'm not saying he'll be the definitive championship favorite, but I could easily see him making it much farther into the playoffs, maybe even round of 8, final. Well, I can't even say final 4 because we don't even know what the format's going to be. But I do think there's that legitimate chance to make a good step up for sure.
Yeah. Going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out for Nick Sanchez. Let's talk about some of these moves I mentioned in the pit stop. Start with Hendrick Motorsports. Now, I did not have this on my bingo card in the slightest. I assumed Corey Day was going to have an expanded NASCAR National Series schedule in 2026. I did not necessarily think that would involve a full-time ride, and I certainly did not think that Hendrick Motorsports was going to have a full-time secondary series operation, which really they haven't had in almost 20 years. And obviously with Junior Motorsports looking a little different, there's a chance for another Hendrick-affiliated full-time driver to be in the mix. Corey Day has shown flashes. I think Corey Day gets a lot of hate for no real reason other than the fact that he gets more chances than Roger Carruth in that 17 car. And he, at least in the second half of this season, has run pretty well. He's certainly gotten better. And again, with the thinning of the herd that I mentioned, he's going to have a chance to compete at a very high level in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series next year. I think it's a decent move, but I don't really know what the plan is for Hendrick Motorsports. Like, is Corey Day the person that Rick and Jeff have decided, hey, if Alex Bowman has another bad year, this is the guy we're putting in the 48 car? I feel like there's better options out there, and I'm just kind of surprised that they're deciding to use the 17 car as a full-time car, because I think it benefits everybody, especially with the new rules that were announced last week that Cup drivers can run more races in the secondary series and in trucks. I think it's 10 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series starts that Cup drivers are allowed. So maybe there's more plans in the fold. We know that Kalegi has been selling off all of its Chevy chassis for Xfinity. Perhaps Hendrick grabs a few of those and goes with a second car, or perhaps those drivers get some starts with Junior Motorsports. But I'm kind of caught off guard by this move because I thought all signs pointed to kind of the same deal as this past year, and maybe Corey Day gets a supplemental ride with another team or perhaps in trucks. But I did not think that a possibility was that Corey Day was going to run full-time for Hendrick in the O'Reilly Series next year.
Yeah, that one caught me by surprise, too, and especially in that Hendrick JRM fold, because we've been talking about how Raza Karuf isn't going to be with JRM the entire season. Carson Kvapil most likely isn't going to be with JRM the entire season. So don't get me wrong, Corey Day, he has an incredible opportunity here to be in-house with one team the entire season, but I don't know why Hendrick decided to go this route when they probably could have just inserted Corey into like Raza's ride when he's not in that seat at JRM. Like it seems like a little bit of an unnecessary move. But I mean, good for them for wanting to develop him in the 17 and get the Hendrick brand in the O'Reilly Series more. I guess that's really all I have to say on it because, like we said, Corey has shown that the potential is there, but he hasn't shown me anything that he's going to be a generational superstar, at least in stock cars. That's the biggest problem that I think a lot of people have. But I'm excited to see what he does. I'd just be lying if I said, like you, I wasn't a little bit puzzled by the 17 going full-time for Hendrick because I truly thought that they'd just keep that heavy alliance with JRM continuing strong, put their development drivers in JRM cars and focus solely on their Cup program. So I assume Kyle Larson, who's been a big advocate of Corey Day in the dirt world, I assume Larson has had some say here and some sway to really convince Rick Hendrick, Jeff Gordon, everyone at Hendrick Motorsports to maybe give this kid a chance and a full-time ride and maybe do it in-house. But at least at first glance, it's a little bit of a surprising move, but I think it could turn out well for them.
Other move in the secondary series. I'm trying to break myself from saying Xfinity, so that's why I'm saying that, because eventually I'm going to have to start saying O'Reilly. But technically there's no sponsor right now until January. Anyway, but the 99 car for Viking Motorsports, Matt DiBenedetto drove this past season. They signed Parker Retzlaff, and we've been having a lot of discussions in our group chat about Parker Retzlaff, that it feels very unfair, the treatment that Retzlaff got from the Chevy camp for pushing Harrison Burton instead of Kyle Busch at Daytona when he almost won a Cup race in the 2024 season, and he had to go to Alpha Prime. And listen, Alpha Prime has its moments of good, but then it has its moments of bad, where you have Tommy Joe Martins throwing hands with one of his crew chiefs. So I don't think that's the best spot for him. I think Viking Motorsports, a team that has shown upward trajectory, is a good spot for Parker Retzlaff. It is a Chevy team, but not really tied in with Childress and Hendrick and all that. And just a stable single-car ride for Parker Retzlaff to kind of build his career, because he's a good driver and had a lot of bad luck with parts and DNFs this season. Should have finished higher in the standings than he did, and I'm just glad that he got a full-time ride.
Yeah, my problem is with that, though, Viking Motorsports doesn't strike me as a team that's not going to have mechanical failures of their own, But you're right. The fact that he will be in the car every week is still a big deal and well-deserved. I just struggle to think that Viking Motorsports is going to take that next step. I mean, with Matty B, they did solid, top 20 car, but I don't think they're going to be in a position to make another step up right now without having like a major alliance with one of the bigger teams. So that's where I'm a little bit iffy. But I mean, Retzlaff obviously is a very promising young driver. I mean, he was in position to almost win a Cup race. But as you said, we saw how that went. I'm curious to see how the team learns and grows together, because it could be similar to maybe AM Racing with Harrison Burton last season, where that one single car, you have a good driver, and they really outperform expectations and grow as an organization. I would love to see that. I'm not sure if we will, but it's just another storyline that could be interesting.
So those are the off-season news and notes in NASCAR since Monday. There was a driver signing in INDYCAR made official yesterday. Second promotion from Indy Next to the INDYCAR Series for 2026. And that is Kyle Collette, the Brazilian driver who finished in the top 5, all but 2 races this year in Indy Next by Firestone. Had 3 wins, Road America, Laguna Seca. He won both ends of the doubleheader, had some good runs on ovals as well. Dennis Hauger was already signed for 2026 to move forward and race for Dale Coyne Racing. But Collette honestly gets a better ride, in my opinion, than Hauger, taking over David Malukas' seat for a Penske-affiliated AJ Foyt Racing team to team up with Santino Ferrucci, which, even though he gets a bad rap, he's a good driver. He finishes in the top 10 in the Indy 500 every year. He got a podium at Road America this season. It's a good move for Collette. Were there better options on the table? I don't know. I still think that Rinus VeeKay would have been a better option for this ride before he obviously got picked up by Juncos Hollinger a couple of weeks ago. But at least as of what was still left on the market for a team that has a rising star in Ferrucci and just lost another in David Malukas, I think it's a better move for them right now to go with someone in Collette who has the Indy Next experience, Tropper, than say someone that's a little less proven like Mick Schumacher, where you really don't know what you're getting right now, for a team that has the potential to compete because of their Penske affiliation.
Exactly, and I think with any rookie campaign, there'll be its ups and downs with Collette. And Ferrucci, he's a veteran in comparison, but he's not exactly a veteran present. So I think that might be a little bit difficult for the organization in terms of his signing. But at the same time, like you said, with the spots remaining on the free agency board, I think this was a good move. And with Dennis Hauger obviously moving up as well, maybe there'll be a good rookie of the year battle at the very least. So there's admittedly, I've been so focused on the NASCAR playoffs the last few weeks, I have completely forgot about IndyCar free agency. So it's hard to speak on this right now. But I do think that obviously AJ Foyt and that whole team is a very good team with that Penske affiliated alliance, and it's hard to set where this expectation should be for rookie campaign, but I think it'll be competitive to say the least, at least at certain points throughout the year. Because, like you said, in Indy Next, he did a very good job. He wasn't Dennis Hauger won how many ever races he did, but I still think it's going to be a good signing, a good way to grow, and something for AJ Foyt to help them go into the future.
Now, it's interesting, too, because it's early November, and there's only one full-time seat, really, that's left open. It's the second car for Dale Coyne Racing. I wouldn't be shocked if they just stick Jacob Abel back in it. So interesting to see that at this juncture, we're still 4 months from the start of the season, and the IndyCar grid for 2026 is pretty set. Usually there's a couple of moves that happen, sometimes even after New Year's, and that just doesn't seem to be the case this year. I think a lot of that is because the last 2 seasons, we've seen double-digit drivers on expiring contracts and like 10 open seats in silly season the last 2 years. This year, that wasn't really the case, and there really wouldn't have been much movement at all if Colton Herta didn't make the jump to F2, because then, of course, that set the domino effect that caused Will Power to take his seat, David Malukas to take Will Power's seat, and now Kyle Collette to take Malukas' seat. But we're going to step aside. When we come back, I got this feeling we're going to get you set. F1. Only 4 races left in the season. Brazilian Grand Prix, Sao Paulo Grand Prix at Interlagos this weekend. Can Lando Norris expand his points lead? We're going to give you our picks and get you set for the action when we come back on Motorsports Today, 88.7 FM, WRSU.org. Always available on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Eddie Kalegi, and you're tuned in to Motorsports Today. Now, back to the show.
Back here, Motorsports Today. Well, the American racing season is over for NASCAR and IndyCar, but Formula One still got 4 races to go and has an action-packed points battle with Lando Norris just a single point ahead of Oscar Piastri ahead of this weekend. Max Verstappen just over a race behind, and lots of points up for grabs this weekend at Interlagos for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Race that has had a lot of twists and turns the last few years, mostly because of two things: weather and the fact that there's a sprint involved. And Tropper, if there's a sprint involved, that means there are a lot of points on the line. So the fact that McLaren started this weekend off with a ton of speed and Red Bull looked shaky to start, now, we've seen that a lot of times before. That story's been told many times, and then we see Max Verstappen turn it on and turn it up before the weekend is through. And I think the sprint, if anything, gives him more time to figure it out. But McLaren having the two fastest cars by a pretty sizable margin in practice is definitely a good sign for a team in McLaren that has actually not won this race since Juan Pablo Montoya. Actually, no, Jenson Button won it in 2012, but still more than a decade. And Norris and Piastri, neither one has really had much success at this track before, a track where Max Verstappen's had some good runs as of late, 3 wins in the last 5 tries.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this a race where Verstappen last year went from 17th to 1st in Buescher?
He sure did.
Yes. So it's very, very hard to root against that, especially when there's a sprint involved, as you said. I mean, if the McLarens are fast, and they'll probably have good runs. F1, as we usually see, is somewhat predictable as long as there's no crazy chaos or wrecks between the two teammates. So it's hard to say, but I mean, it feels pretty straightforward. But it's going to be the McLaren's doing okay, and Verstappen somehow finding a way to chip into the points lead.
Yeah. Now, the sprint, Tropper, I think it's going to be very interesting because if we're going by the practice speed, good chance that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are going to be lined up row 1 beside each other heading into turn 1 in the sprint tomorrow. And I just caution this team about the same thing happening that happened at COTA. And I don't think it's going to happen twice in a row, but if you are Lando and you are Oscar, I think you need to look big picture. And it's hard to do that when you're in this microcosm of 4 races left in the season and you've got a 1-point gap for the championship and you know that every point counts. But you got to look big picture for the full weekend and know there's a lot more up for the grabs come the race. And in the sprint, yes, it's important to score points, but it's just as important to not take each other out again because that's what helped bring Max Verstappen back into the championship conversation in the first place. So be aggressive if you're Lando and Oscar, but don't make the same mistake again that you had at Austin a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And honestly, I don't think they'll have a mistake that sizable again, just because probably internal talks with the team, probably from Lando and Oscar talking to each other potentially. I would hope that they put everything aside them there, but at the same time, Interlagos, that turn 1, turn 2 can be pretty chaotic. There's not a lot of room there as you go into the upper turns. So I mean, it's anything's possible. We definitely could see chaos, especially in the sprint where there's points but less points. That could, if you have a bad day, like I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's a less of a detriment if you mess up in the sprint. So I could definitely see some shenanigans happen again, although incredibly unlikely. So we'll see. But it's so hard to predict. But if the McLarens are going to be as fast as they were in practice, good chance that if they keep it clean, they'll just pull away.
So I'm looking at the weather forecast for Sao Paulo, Brazil this weekend. Sunday looks good. Tomorrow, heavy chance of rain. So let's see what goes down tomorrow if that rain hits during the sprint, because rain has thrown a wrinkle into this race many times over the last couple of years. Now, last season, very interesting. So Verstappen, you mentioned, went 17th to 1st, but you also had Alpine in the midst of all the drama with that team and them ultimately deciding to get rid of Esteban Ocon. He actually finished 2nd to Verstappen in that race, and Gasly finished 3rd. So if there's a sneaky team, look out for Alpine. Last 2 years, they've scored double points in both of the Interlagos races. Lando Norris finished 6th in this race a year ago. Oscar Piastri 8th. Just 3 years ago, this was right around when we started the show. I remember Kevin Magnussen qualified on pole, and George Russell got his first career win with Mercedes. So interesting things have happened, but one thing's for sure. Max Verstappen's run well here before the last 2 years. He's 36 points back, 4 races to go. Here's my pick, Tropper. I think Max Verstappen does not win the sprint this time around. I think McLaren gets the sprint. I think Lando Norris is going to win the sprint race, but then come the actual race, Max Verstappen gets the victory. I think he's going to gain some points this weekend. I don't think it's going to be much, but I think he could find himself within 25 potentially by weekend's end, which would make it very doable heading to 3 tracks he's very good at, including Las Vegas in 2 weeks, where he is undefeated so far in his career. So I'm going to give me Lando Norris in the sprint, but Verstappen to close out the weekend strong for Red Bull, pick up another victory and gain at least a little bit on Lando. And I think Oscar Piastri right now, unfortunately, as good of the year he had to start, I think he's kind of lost.
I'm going to go similar to you, Eddie, but thankfully not the same again. I think really the only difference in sprint, I see one of the McLarens with us, as if they are still winning the sprint at least. But I actually think it's going to be Oscar Piastri, mainly because, and we've talked about it not as much this season, but Lando Norris, especially last year when he was in the championship run against Max Verstappen, what was the biggest problem that Lando had? Starting the race. He just couldn't get off of the starts quick enough. And by turn 1, lost the lead. And I don't know why we haven't talked about it as much this year. Maybe it just hasn't happened. Maybe it's something needs improved on. But I just have that gut feeling for some reason that if they're side by side again, Oscar is going to be one to pull away in the sprint. So give me Oscar Piastri for the sprint. And then once again, I've said it, I think, every F1 race weekend the last 2 months almost, but Max Verstappen until proven otherwise, especially at a track like this. So I would not be surprised if the sprint, even if qualifying doesn't go well for Verstappen and Red Bull, if there's a sprint for them to get some track position and then another start, that Verstappen is the best there is right now. So I think it's still hard to pick against him under any circumstances, especially when he went from 17th to first last season here.
Well, Monday at 7 o'clock, we'll be live on TikTok to recap the Brazilian Grand Prix. We didn't touch on it today. There's been a lot of news about the lawsuit between NASCAR and 2311 and FRM about the depositions coming up for Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske that they don't really want to do. I'm saving that for Monday. So you'll want to tune in for the show on Monday, and then every Friday we're live from 12 to 1 p.m. on WRSU. Every episode archived. YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Find us on the web, motorsportstoday.net. Find us on the socials at Motorsports Today. But that's going to do it for this Friday edition of Motorsports Today. Thanks to Nick Sanchez and all the Cup drivers who joined us earlier in the show. For Adam Tropper, I'm Eddie Kalegi signing off. If you're listening live, the student section with Nick Hart and Sean Newcomb is coming up next on WRSU. But I'm Eddie Kalegi saying so long here on a Friday on Motorsports Today, reminding you as always to enjoy the weekend and enjoy the racing.